the Ad Podcast. I have a super exciting founder that I'm pumped to share with you guys today. Janavi Dhawan is the Chief Marketing Officer of Golden Tiger. Golden Tiger is a family business. Prior to her taking over as a co-founder and Chief Marketing Officer, she was a longtime influencer marketing expert and executive at companies like Etsy, Influential, and Ruggable, to name a few. And she decided to take what she learned as a marketer and translate that to the family business. It reminds me a little bit of kind of the Gary Vaynerchuk story of him, learning about social media in his dad's wine store and then building this empire. So super excited to meet you and to learn a little bit more about your story. But yeah, why don't we get into it? Tell me, maybe let's start with, where you grew up and how you got into the marketing and the influencer space specifically. Tell me about, kind of parallel, like the story of the family business, and when did you decide to take what you learned and come in-house and rejoin the company, so to speak?
Yeah, sure. So I actually was born in New Delhi in India, and we moved to LA when I think I was about like 13 years old or something like that. And ever since then, been in LA for pretty much like my entire life now at this point. But yeah, it's interesting that kind of juxtaposition, and coming from a very rich cultural country like India to LA, and kind of blending those two worlds together. A lot of people wouldn't see similarities in that, but I have and since the very beginning, which I promise is going to be relevant to my experience now
Oh, I love it. I
in a
love it.
little bit. But yeah, essentially, saw some parallels, went into marketing. I've always been highly creative. I actually originally wanted to go to art school, and any like Indian parent, they're just like, absolutely not. Like, are you sure about that? I mean, my parents were never like doctors. You have to be like a doctor, engineer, a lawyer, or anything like that. But art school was definitely a little bit of a stretch for them, and rightly so. Fair enough. Being first gen, obviously, like you're coming into the country and coming into the US, and your parents want to make sure you're successful and you're making the right decisions for yourself. But yeah, went to Cal Poly Pomona, studied marketing there, and ever since then just really been fascinated with human behavior and understanding the psychology behind why people buy certain things. Like, what is the actual tick and like that emotional pull that somebody would choose a different product over another one, or why they would make certain decisions based on like branding or marketing, or just all of that, and like how companies really speak to their consumer. So always had a very desire to understand that from a very human behavior lens. And obviously, I think I got pretty good at like statistics and analysis and like things like that when I was in college. So that really set the foundation of taking something that I was already passionate about and really understanding, like, okay, how do we make this measurable? Like, what does it mean to look at these KPIs and things like that. But since then, I would say I got my start in the professional sphere in like social media marketing and things like that. And right around that time, influencer marketing was really taking off. I think I remember like my first like big girl job was at Jib Jab, and I was like running their social media for them. It was so funny, which is, Jib Jab is also just hilarious. When I tell people that, it's like, oh my God, it's a blast from the past. But it was really fun. And like meme marketing was like things that I was really leaning into during my time there. But yeah, influencer marketing was like just taking off. And, after that, I joined Daniel Wellington, which was like the pioneer of influencer marketing in a lot of ways. And ever since then, oh wow, things have been kind of like an evolution, just taken like a twist and a turn of all sorts. I like to say that I've never really felt like I wanted to pigeonhole myself in, a specific sphere of marketing. I mean, when you think about it, and my understanding of, and my desire to understand like human behavior, it's always I've always approached my career in the same lens. And I think like, in the back of my head, everyone is like, oh, what if I could start my own business or run my own business or things like that. So it kind of evolved into just, I saw my parents, they were like, that we have this cool business idea, let's start it. And obviously my marketing kind of background came in handy, because they're very product people. They're very like, okay, this is how we can, start getting a product to market and all of these different things. But the marketing sphere was something that I was really passionate about. And yeah, we did like an entire rebrand, which obviously we can get into as well. But yeah, that's kind of been my journey in like a long-winded way.
I love it. No, it's awesome. I'm always fascinated by the Indian culture dynamic with parents. We had a creative director at my last agency who went to law school, hated every second of it, and then the minute he passed the bar, the entire time he was in law school, he was building up his social media following as a fitness creator and a travel creator.
Wow. Yeah.
And then he passes the bar and basically goes, okay, I've accomplished the thing that I was supposed to do. Now I'm going to go be a creative and work at an agency as I'm, moving towards being a full-time content creator.
Yeah.
So I always think that's, an interesting dynamic. It feels like your parents had maybe a little bit more of like a balanced idea about it. Like, they weren't trying to put you into this stereotypical box of like what maybe their culture told them success looks like, or what, first generation Americans are supposed, from these cultural backgrounds are supposed to do. But they weren't going to let you, go completely off on a whim and just be an artist. But at the same time, they were a little bit more flexible and like, okay, like, take this passion for creativity and turn it into a business acumen and do something that is going to put, food on the table and help you build a career at the same time.
Yeah. No, and I'm so very grateful for that. I think I was joking with them that if I had gone to art school during COVID, I probably would be selling NFTs or something. Might have made a lot of money, honestly.
Could happen, right?
Yeah. But it's so funny that you say that, because in college, I really fell in love with the number side of things, and, economics. And like, again, it comes back down to human behavior, because that's really like the core of my just desire to understand things. It's like, even when looking at markets and like, white spaces in markets, it's like, okay, like, why would a consumer want a specific product or this or that? Or even when it comes to investing, actually, I'm such a nerd. Like, literally, one of my hobbies is just like researching stocks and researching companies. So yeah, it really coincided very well with my existing kind of, and my existing leverage that I really had, and it turned it into something a little bit more useful, if you will.
Yeah, that's fun. So as your time as a social marketer, you worked across a few different categories. You worked in-house at an agency. You worked on the brand side. When you were at Influential, were you on the sell side?
Yeah, I was on the sales side, actually. And this goes back to like me not even like, it's so funny because watching like all of my friends and everyone kind of like, grow in their professional spheres. A lot of people have obviously like climbed, the corporate ladder in a sense, if you will. But I've always taken a very just fun approach to my career, because I like to learn as many things as I can. And in every role, what I've liked to do is, even if it was in the influencer marketing space, that I was obviously like entrenched in that at that time, every single role that I wanted to take, I wanted to learn an entirely different skill. And so I was super grateful, because I was actually, I worked with Influential on the brand side when I was at MeUndies. Worked with them briefly at Ruggable. Yeah. So like I understood their business model. I understood like what they're kind of like about, where their competitive edge really like lay. And coming from the brand side, I had people in my network that were already interested in maybe potentially hiring an agency instead of doing it all in-house. So that was definitely there. And, Influential is so great because they've built their business based on being a subject matter expert within influencer marketing. Like their talent pool, their kind of sphere is pretty incredible. So, but yes, to answer your question, I was on the sales side. It was a really, really cool gig. I realized though that I loved marketing, honestly, like coming back to the brand side and just like that just made a lot of sense for me because again, going back to the consumer behavior and this and that. And I always wanted to like pitch ideas to my clients and then they're like, no, you're like a seller. So transitioning back to the brand side made a lot of sense for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I've heard many times of kind of agency people going over to the vendor side or the sell side. And Influential was very interesting because like in the early days, they were more of a vendor selling into agencies, and then they became an agency and they got acquired by Publicis. But I had never heard of like a brand person going over to the sell side and then going back to the brand. But I think, yeah, like it said, like you mentioned, you've used your career as not necessarily having to be this like cookie cutter pathway, but really an opportunity to try different things and learn. So I love that. As it pertains to the work that you were doing on brand, you worked at MeUndies, you worked at Jib Jab, you worked at Etsy. It feels like you probably had a decent blend of like you being able to use your quantitative brain and think about like, return on ad spend and marketing as an investment, but needs to generate profit and bottom line. It needs to be a performance channel. And then maybe at a company bigger like Etsy, maybe it was more awareness and less performance. But what do you think is the right blend of how people should be thinking of creator marketing? Is it affiliate? Is it brand? Is it content creation? Is a little bit of everything? Like, what's your perspective?
Honestly, it's all of it. I think you can leverage creators and just creator marketing at every part of the funnel. And that's kind of what I've been advocating throughout the different roles that I've had. You can't expect a creator that is, generating a lot of revenue on TikTok Shop to then go into doing like a brand campaign that's, a storytelling piece. I mean, it might work in some situations, but I think like, really understanding that just like you would have, a marketing team dedicated to certain initiatives, you would have to do the exact same thing for your creator marketing strategy. I think it's like not probably the right approach when you kind of expect one person to do it all. That's just not how it works, right? People are going to have different strengths and that's okay. But yeah, definitely using creators in all parts of the funnel is, I would say, the best approach to creator marketing that I've seen. I think there's a lot of debate now where people are leaning back into traditional affiliate channels and things like that. And previously it was, brand marketing and, utilizing creators in a more of an upper funnel play. But I really think the brands that do it well understand that, you have to have all of those different programs. And the world today looks very different than it did 10 years ago, where you could lean on celebrities and this and that for everything. Creators are like the new celebrities. There's absolutely no denying that at all. Depending on, again, like where they live in your funnel, they can just be leveraged for different initiatives and different goals. But that's really like my overarching perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's almost like you need a creator strategy for every channel or any channel that they could be applicable, whether it's affiliate or whether it's content creation or experiential. So I think that's actually the first time I've ever heard it articulated that way, and I think that's something I'm going to be thinking about. Like doesn't need to be bucketed or centralized. Like almost like different departments can have their own creator networks and their own vendors and their own creator relationships for the things that creator marketing can do for them. So
Right. And it's funny. I think about social media in that exact way. You're always going to have paid social, but you're going to have organic social, and a post that is going to drive revenue for you versus like awareness of just like a campaign launch or things like that is going to be different. It's funny. I think the different companies that I've been at, there's always a question of like, where does influencer marketing live within the marketing organization? And sometimes it's lumped with acquisition, sometimes it's lumped with organic social or brand or things like that. But I will be maybe one of the few people to say it. I think it should actually be its like entirely different, like own kind of subset within the marketing org. It should be your creator team that then works with social, that then works with like paid social, that then works with your overarching like brand team to articulate a different story or a campaign. But yeah, that's another thing that I've seen within like the creator marketing world, is like, where does it live? Like, what are the goals of the channel? And I think it should be its own thing.
yeah, that's interesting. So even the idea of like maybe there is a centralized team that owns creator relationships because they know how to speak their language, they are relationship centric, they know how to brief, and then they can kind of farm them out for all the different disciplines that need to use them.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really cool. All right, I want to get into Golden Tiger because that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
I love hearing people's origin stories and understanding how compounding career experiences kind of lead to the next logical thing. So we talked a little bit about Golden Tiger being a family business and something that you started with your parents. So
Yeah.
were your parents already involved in the business and then they came to you and said, hey, you really know marketing, this isn't our sweet spot, we'd like you to come in and help us with this? Or did you guys literally come together and launch the company from scratch together?
Yeah, so it was more of the first. It was more so that my dad actually my parents see, like, the thing about being Indian is you're gonna have like some kind of brew for anything, right? Any ailment, you're gonna lean on kind of remedies to cure that. And I think like my mom had made something for my dad firsthand, and he really understood that, like, oh my God, this is like a really powerful kind of like, kind of like antidote to the flu and cold he was experiencing. And so my parents originally decided to start this on their own. My dad had no experience in beverage. Him and I are very similar in the sense that like we don't let like traditional kind of like roles define us. If we're curious about something and we're passionate about it, we'll just let that curiosity guide us. Had no experience in beverage, food and bev. Got a co-packer, understood the formulation that he needed to create in order for this to be effective. I think like my dad was really, really intelligent, and my mom as well, like in thinking about beverage is functional rather than anything else. It's funny that all the brands that are you see doing extremely extremely well, like Poppy, Olipop, a lot of the other brands in the food and bev space, they were thought about and conceived about 10 years ago now at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like really like 7 to 10 years ago was like when they were thinking about like, okay, like what are we passionate about? And it's just funny kind of thinking about things in that long-term lens. But yeah, like we saw a very interesting space in the market. One was that traditional Ayurvedic remedies were like not really being leveraged at a mass capacity at all. And then the second thing was that curcumin, which is the medicinal compound of turmeric, is one of the most powerful superfoods known to man. Like bar none, that spice can really, really like help with everything from inflammation to muscle recovery, joint health, heart health, digestion, immunity. I mean, it is a powerhouse of an ingredient. And he saw that and he was like, nobody's doing this. Like, you go to the store, you see these wellness shots, right?
Yeah, the little ones where it's like a crank. Like I get them all the time. I love the turmeric ones, but I love like ginger, and I like the ones where you feel them. You can be like, oh,
Totally.
I have a sore throat and it's working.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny because that's a lot of the times, I am really sorry to do this to you, Dylan. A lot of the times they won't contain curcumin, which is
Oh no.
yeah, is literally like the part of turmeric that you need. It's like the medicinal extract, really. And sometimes they'll use like turmeric seasoning, or they'll, fresh press like turmeric root. And all of those things are fine. It's if you really want to get the benefits of curcumin and you really want to use it according to traditional Ayurvedic practices, in a product that's also clinically tested, that's where you would lean on Golden Tiger. And that kind of like, that's where we come in. It's like this blend of ancient Ayurvedic wisdom blended with modern science. And that's really like what we wanted to change. And I say we now, but essentially, like, obviously this has evolved quite drastically from when my parents originally started it. But yeah, like we just realized, hey, like nobody's actually doing turmeric in like the correct way. And even you'll see these like curcumin like pills and stuff like on Amazon. Again, like really questionable like ingredient sourcing. You don't know where they're coming from. The supplement industry is very interesting. There's not a ton of regulation in that specific industry, so you can make a lot of claims and kind of like get away with it. But yeah, so that's another thing. We just saw it and we were like, nobody's doing it. And originally when my parents started it, it did burn. It didn't necessarily taste the greatest. So we were definitely targeting consumers like you. And it's just funny, but the feedback that we got from how our specific formulation and the way that we process and treat the curcumin in our formulation had been working for them was incredible. We had somebody, on Amazon that was like, I'm on chemotherapy and like, this is the only thing that like I can drink. And then we had, other people that were just saying like, oh my God, I've lost so much weight. Because again, when you think about it, a lot of times like bloating, like gut issues are really because of inflammation in the body that's really gone like untreated. But yeah, so we saw reviews like that and we were like, oh my God, I think we're like actually onto something. We're definitely addressing a problem. And the market is like, the initial feedback that at least that we were getting from customers was that it's working for them. And that was super exciting to see. And I think like we started very like super scrappy, very bare bones. We still are obviously like quite scrappy, I would say. But yeah, very like humble beginnings. Like my mom literally like brewed the original formulations in our kitchen.
So cool.
And so yeah, it's so funny like seeing all of this like come to life and kind of like seeing the trajectory and the journey of how things started to where they are now. And I'm sure obviously we're going to keep iterating, we're going to keep evolving and all of these different things. But yeah, very, very humble beginnings to how Golden Tiger started.
I love it. And then, what's your mom and dad's background? What was your dad doing, and what was your mom doing, before this?
Yeah, so my dad has always been a production guy. He really understands how to make goods, like take a idea and really like just put it to use. Like, how do you actually like get a co-packer or this, that, manufacturing, like minimum order quantities, like how do they work in specific industries, like so he's always had that like manufacturing and like supply chain and ops brain. My mom has been traditionally a homemaker, but she is an extremely intelligent woman. I get a lot of my creativity and like my desire to understand human behavior from her. And I think like obviously seeing my dad and his like, career paths over the years, she's kind of understood. She has a very strong like business acumen. that you wouldn't expect. But I think a lot of homemakers actually like have that in their brain because they kind of like see everything from
Yeah.
start to finish. But yeah, again, like no CPG background, no formal like, training on how to start a business.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
just people that saw a need and they were like, let's do it.
I love that. So tell me a little bit more about Ayurvedic. What does that mean, and why is it important for consumers to understand what that means?
Yeah, so Ayurveda is an ancient system of science that hails from India, very
Mm.
similar to traditional Chinese medicine, where, Ayurveda specifically focuses on understanding your body's complexities, and understanding what foods you should consume according to that, or like how to understand how to actually get like the most out of specific ingredients for different like ailments and things like that. And Ayurveda, oh my God, has been around for like over 5,000 years. So it is very heavily ingrained into Indian culture and just the way that Indians consume, even like their curries and things like that. Like Ayurveda has been historically present in that part of the world for a very, very long time. And if yoga is a form of Ayurvedic, is like an Ayurvedic practice essentially. Oil pulling is another thing that comes traditionally from Ayurveda. And oh my God, I was like on this just chat GPT kind of like curiosity binge. And I didn't even know this, but like traditionally nose jobs are accredited to traditional Ayurveda as well. Yeah, fascinating. So you're talking about like a system of medicine that is not only extremely old, and is integrated into our culture in a very like wellness centric way, but you're talking about like a actual ancient science. And when it comes to like some of the modern like cosmetic surgical practices that we see is also accredited to Ayurveda, which is just blows my mind. It's crazy.
Yeah, and all these interesting, like trendy, now Western. Maybe you could consider those co-opted, right? So, like the idea, like you're talking about oil pulling and
Mhm.
yoga and stuff like that. That's all very trendy and part of like the Western wellness diet today, right?
Yep. But yeah, it's been in India for thousands of years. So it's just funny. And to just Indian people on the street, as you're kind of like seeing the culture, they think of it as just their way of life. They don't think of it as wellness centric or trendy or anything like that. It's just like, oh yeah, like why wouldn't I like do oil pulling, or like why wouldn't I like use a tongue scraper in the morning? Like it's like I think even a lot of Indian people, they don't really understand like the actual fundamental foundation of Ayurveda and like what it says for some of these practices. But yeah, just ingrained in the culture. Like it's like without thought, you just do these things.
That's interesting. So, Golden Tiger. It's funny when I always when encounter a brand that I'm not familiar with. When I found your information and reached out, I was almost thinking like Tiger Bomb. Like, what is this? So, tell me a little bit about the brand name. Where did it come from? What does it mean? And how did you land on it?
Yeah, so oh my God, we were like playing with so many names. And I think we landed on Golden Tiger because turmeric is essentially like liquid gold. It's like a
Mhm.
gold, it's the golden spice, right? Like that's what it's essentially called. And Tiger, just because of the ethos of who we are as a company, tigers are very fierce. Tigers are also like the national animal of India as well. And just again, like when you think about the characteristics of a tiger, that is something that we wanted to embody wholeheartedly. Like tigers are not, they're fierce, but they're also like extremely loyal. They also like, are obviously going to take care of their families and all of these different things. So we wanted to lean into that ethos of a specific animal, and the tiger obviously just made sense on so many different on different planes.
I love that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, original formulation comes from Mom's Kitchen, which was a wellness. My wife creates potions for me when I'm sick. I don't really do Western medicine or go to doctors
Great.
unless I'm
That
like.
means she loves you.
Uh,
So
and she's also a yoga teacher, so
that makes sense.
but so I'm familiar with kind of like that concept. But so then you kind of take those base ingredients, you go to some co-packers and see like, okay, how do we do this in a way that is exciting, and that we can scale and that we can deliver in a beverage format. What was the biggest challenge from going to something that would maybe be considered like more of like a tincture, or like something that you kind of brew up for like in like a actual moment to treat you're not feeling well, you want to kind of bounce back, you start to feel like you're getting sick, you want to maybe prevent that. What was the biggest challenge from going to that type of manufacturing from like base kind of ingredients to moving to like a shelf stable beverage?
Yeah, so pretty early on, my dad had the foresight. He was like, if we're going to do this, we need to do this in the correct way. We need to find a co-packer and we need to make sure our formulation is shelf stable. Those are the things like very early on. We were like, okay, we need to have this dialed in because, if this goes in the direction that we hope it does, we want to have the structure and the foundation to really leverage that and literally turn on a switch. And, you have the ability to produce like thousands and thousands and thousands of units. So that's something that was pretty dialed in early on. But I would say like one of the core things that we were thinking about from the very beginning is like, how do we make this medically effective? And we obviously, we're in the beverage space, right? Like everything that we write on our labels, we need to make sure that we are FDA compliant. And so there's obviously like that little kind of issue there because technically, obviously, we are anti-inflammatory. We've been clinically tested. The results of the clinical trial that we did, which is another like really, really cool thing, is that our product is anti-inflammatory, right? But to write anti-inflammatory, which is a medical claim on our packaging, we need FDA approval for that. But yeah, it's very interesting. Like we play in this space where we have created and crafted something not only that tastes good, but is designed to heal your body from the inside out. And yeah, I think, the bare bones of the production piece and my dad's expertise there, like really, really, really helped. And then just him having the vision and understanding that, like, if you're going to be in food and beverage, which is a brutal industry to be in, you have to have something that's defensible, which is essentially like what we created with the function of our product.
That's cool. And did you initially go out to market it as like a immune system support, like the way that people use kind of traditional turmeric and ginger shots, like the things that we were talking about, kind of like the mass market way, and people normally experience turmeric, although it's kind of exploded with like turmeric lattes and like everything else.
Yeah.
But was it initially an idea of something that people would keep on hand kind of before they got sick, or right when they felt like they were getting sick, or trying to, get well faster? Or were you seeing it more as a lifestyle beverage to just kind of ongoing for general health?
Yeah, I would say the way that we thought about it has always been a lifestyle beverage initially when we had started, oh my God, which is just looking at the brand then and obviously seeing it now, it's completely unrecognizable, which is just hilarious to me. If you look at like the evolution of Poppy or even Olipop or Athletic Greens, they have a similar trajectory. But yes, I mean, initially when we started, it was actually in our plastic bottle format, which we're actually actively like kind of, leaning away from at the moment anyway. But yeah, plastic bottle format, it was like a cut and stack label of this like tiger, and it just said golden tiger, like turmeric lemonade. It was just really funny. And yeah, we started, it was like we wanted to become a lifestyle beverage, but we knew that taste was something that was super, super fundamental to that being possible. Because right, like you can't, I think different consumers care about different things. Some consumers are going to care about the Ayurvedic aspect, the understanding of, you know, how to heal your body from the inside out, and doing that with a product that's designed to do that, and consuming that for that reason. Some people are going to be like, okay, I just want like a healthier alternative to a soda or like a recovery drink or like whatever it is, right? Or some people are going to be like, I don't want to drink an energy drink right now, but I still want that like little pep in my step. And how do I achieve that? So it's just a variety of things that we've kind of done to appeal to different consumers along the way. But yeah, the fundamental was the overarching story of what we talk to about to all of those consumers at the same time is really like, hey, this is just good for you. This is like a fantastic product that tastes good, and it's got probably one of the most powerful superfoods like known to man that helps with inflammation. And so yeah, it was a couple of things that I think we did early on that, yeah, but fundamentally taste, making it a lifestyle beverage, making sure that you know, consumers that were, regardless of like their core need, they were gravitating towards the product for that wellness aspect. That was super important.
Got it. And then let's talk about channel. So did you guys go direct to consumer, Shopify, Amazon first? What was kind of the channel strategy?
Yeah, early on, Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we're still pretty primarily like leaning into Amazon right now as we gear up and kind of like, you know, penetrate our retail distribution. But Amazon, what we really liked about it is their existing customer base. That's number one. You can get feedback from anyone. People can discover your product, right? Like they search for a turmeric drink, and you pop up, and that was really, really fascinating to us. So Amazon for that reason, and then also anyone who's in beverage specifically knows that shipping beverages across the country is a nightmare.
Yeah, and not only that, but just to have the scale of Amazon,
Yep,
and
exactly.
people don't want to feel like they're paying for shipping. So if they can buy through Amazon, they're like, "Oh, I'm not paying any shipping. I'm getting, you
Yeah.
know, it's the same as going down to Costco and pulling a flat of whatever drink off the shelf. You know, it feels like you're shopping in the same way that you're shopping in store."
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when we were really like leaning into Amazon was the height of COVID, right? Like, so your shipping costs really vary from like location to location, depending on where the customer is in the country. And obviously, designing a mechanism to get product to people, no matter their location, really, like, was another very, very like large priority for us. And so Amazon just made the most sense for us at that time. But yeah, as of right now, we're kind of, you know, really pushing like the retail bandwagon. And what the really nice thing about Amazon has been just for us is that you're getting feedback from customers from all over the country. You're not just getting like feedback from customers that are a specific audience, right? So like when we initially started for any company, you want to make sure that you're appealing to a wide enough audience. Even like, you know, you might be like sort of a unique like wellness product, but you want to make sure that that appeal isn't going to differ from state to state, because obviously California, you have more of a health conscious consumer, right? But you want to make sure that somebody in Texas is going to buy your product just the same, or Arkansas, and they have a need for it, right? It's like really interesting. This is another part of my like nerdy like pastime hobbies that I lean into, is like I look at Google search trends, and you know, very early on we looked at like inflammation, like where people are Googling inflammation the most, and it's in essentially states like Arkansas, like Mississippi, like, oh yeah. And it's funny because I've been like, you know, asked like, okay, you're an Ayurvedic product and you're like, you have turmeric, but like, what is the mass appeal for your product, and like why would somebody like need it in Arkansas? And they actually do, because they have inflammation, and like that population, that belt of people actually are suffering with it the most, right? Because like their food ecosystem in those regions is not as evolved as it is in California. We have organic options. You can go to the store and like get your turmeric, like lattes or whatever, right? But you may not necessarily be able to in those communities. And so that's another thing that when we were kind of like, repackaging it and rebranding it and kind of like honing in on that specific messaging, we wanted to make sure that we were talking to different customers that depending on the need for the product are still feeling like this product would work for them.
Yeah, so it's not like inaccessible and it's just for, people living in the coast who go to Pilates class every day and are eating kale salads. It's really like you notice that this trend of like people who are actually having health outcomes that were pointing them in the direction of researching inflammation and then understanding that Ayurvedic diets and practices specifically around this active ingredient in turmeric, it was kind of leading them down a path, and it was almost people who needed to aspire to that wellness lifestyle that needed the product more than, your average person who's maybe already in really good shape and is thinking about this stuff all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back, one last point that I just want to touch on. From the beginning of when we started the brand, and from my involvement, really, like the end goal was always to have the greatest impact on the greatest amount of people. And not only is that like a financially like sound strategy in CPG, but it's also a strategy that we needed to really like hone in on. And that's why our rebranding, that's why like, when I talked about like, how do we actually like figure out how to make it taste good? That's another thing as to like why we really leaned into that, because we knew like people aren't gonna, like, some people may not care about Ayurveda, some people may not care about inflammation necessarily, but they're like, I just want something that tastes good and is like a way better alternative than what I'm seeing. But I think like what's interesting in our case and what's really cool is just like the function of our product, like us leading with that and making sure like we're not just like a better alternative for something that exists, but we actually do something that is fundamentally different than any other beverage on the market. That was something that was also just really important to us from the beginning.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the rebrand. Not only did you change the look and the feel of the product, but you also changed the packaging. You went to cans. I was very much aware that you guys look like some of the contemporary good for you energy drink companies that are out there, really kind of striking in that zone.
Yep.
I'm sure there was some intention to that. So tell me a bit about what were you guys trying to accomplish with the rebrand? What was the insight that was driving it, and why move to cans?
Yeah, so we actually did have a sparkling line prior to the rebrand. It was just not what it is today. And the intention behind why we're like kind of shifting over is a lot of it is to do with just sustainability. Plastic is not super sustainable. And, obviously, as we're spending more time on this planet, I think like retailers are going to move away from plastic as much as they humanly can. So that's one of the core kind of like fundamentals as to like why we're super leaning into cans. And then it's just like easier to produce in cans. The format's easier to drink. The consumption habits of somebody drinking a can, they're usually going to finish that then. Whereas with a bottle, you're going to kind of maybe close it up, maybe drink it at a later time. So actually, that's another thing that we thought of when kind of like thinking about it is like, okay, what's the consumption habit? And the reason our product tastes delicious, and like, when you're drinking like a better for you soda, even like, and you're drinking our product, like, because it has a very natural, good, healthy taste to it, it tastes really great. But when you're drinking it, you're like, oh my God, this is like good for me. You want to consume more of it. Like, your body is basically sending you the signals. I've heard this across the board from my friends, customers, the feedback that we've gotten. They're like, oh my God, this is like a healthy tasting drink, but like it tastes really good. And obviously we use the highest quality ingredients, but that's another thing that we were thinking of in terms of like form factor and consumption habits. But yeah, the rebrand, oh my God, where do I even begin? It was like the most intensive, like imagination of the brand. It's so funny. It's like it was super sporty, and like we were like leaning into more of like being a sports drink. Before I was like, before I came on board full time, and I was like, no, we have to like just, this is just not the right way. It's wellness is obviously like the overarching theme of our brand. Like, we wanted to be wellness, but we wanted to be gender neutral. Oh my God. There were like, it's just so funny. Like, when I talk about the things that I was thinking going into the rebrand, this is exactly what it is. Like, we wanted to be gender neutral. We wanted to appeal to a wide audience of people. We knew that we didn't want to go super, super young, and super like, flavor heavy like some of the other brands, because at the end of the day, we are functional, and we wanted to look like that. So that was another thing that was super important. And then, yeah, just like looking at the shelf, I studied the shelf for months before we even like, decided, yeah, on colors. And I think I mentioned this is in one of my LinkedIn posts too. It's like, when I looked at the beverage shelf at any retailer, right, all I'm seeing is like cans that are, let's say if like the flavor is lemon lime, like the can is yellow or green or something like that. And then subsequently, all of the other like cans that are from the same brand that are a different flavor are like the background is literally like the flavor color. And a lot of them had like ingredients and this and that. And I was just looking at it and I was like, we could go this route. Like, we could 100% do this. But I was like, knowing our foundation, knowing we're traditional, like we're leaning into our traditional, our cultural heritage, and that we were just a unique product, I really wanted to lean into that. I think like going the very like safe, traditional route of what you're seeing on the shelf, like it just wasn't uniquely us. And I think that's, if I could give like any advice to anyone who's designing their packaging or thinking about their branding, you want to lean into your core foundation of who you are as a brand. And because listen, at the end of the day, consumer trends change, right? What retailers are looking for 1 month may be different what they're looking for in a year and things like that. So designing a brand that is uniquely you and that's going to stand the test of time is the most relevant thing that you can do for your product at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, obviously, look at category disruptors like Liquid Death and what they did in the water shelf, and their strategy is very intentional, but it's cohesive, and it's cohesive as they roll out new products. And I think standing out in a way that isn't gimmicky or like doesn't feel like like you're trying too hard, I think is probably the right strategy. And the best way you can do that is just be authentically you. So I think that's a great lesson, especially as you're thinking about packaging and shelf space and standing out.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk about how you went to market. So we talked about Amazon being the driver, but how did you generate awareness? I'm going to guess, lending from your background a little bit, how important was creator marketing to your strategy?
It was important, but it was not the be all and end all, which is funny for a creator marketer to be saying.
Yeah.
when you're an early stage company, especially in CPG, where you don't have like economies of scale just yet, anything that you are prioritizing as marketing, you need to like have your ROI like dialed down. You need to have your cost per acquisition dialed down, and you want to make sure your ROI is there. The way that we thought about things at the beginning was, how can we reach the greatest amount of people with like the smallest budgets and actually test this? And the answer was meta ads.
Hmm.
I mean, meta ads is really like honestly how we interacted with most of our customers, like if not all of them, and educating them in the comments and really like building that like one-to-one relationship at scale, so we can get as much feedback as possible, right? Because when you're an early stage brand, thinking that your product is never going to change is the fundamental flaw that you want to avoid, because you just don't, you can have a certain perception of like who you are as a brand and like your vision and the product. Market feedback may be completely different, and you have to be open to that, especially in CPG, because when you're building a CPG company, your entire like goal is to get your consumers to give a crap about you and to give a crap about you over another product. And so like to a certain extent, you're going to have to like evolve to their desires and like their tastes and like what they're looking for. But yeah, like meta ads leaned into that pretty heavily, got a lot of feedback. And based on that, we were like, okay, this is what makes the most sense. And like, this is how we differentiate. But yeah, for the first like 3 years was literally like getting the nuts and bolts of the company down. And, I was lucky in the sense that like now everything's pretty much flushed out. Now I'm like, okay, I can really take my marketing like brain and scale this. But yeah, I mean, that was like how we started. It's just crazy to like even talk to you and like think about like, the journey of it. It's wild.
Uh, Tell me, so, there's kind of a couple of schools of thoughts around meta ads. One is like really leverage the data capabilities and drill down and get to the most specific target possible, and then test lots and lots and lots of creative iterations and a lot of audiences. And then there's another school of thought that, Meta and its robots know a lot more than you do. And if you set the targeting wide, it will actually self-optimize, but it'll also kind of like find the audience that you didn't know existed. I'm curious, what school of thought are you to the meta approach for paid?
I would say because of the industry that I'm in, I lean towards the latter.
Mm-hmm.
When with like any CPG brand, gathering feedback from a wider like audience, like as wide as your pool you can kind of make it, I would say the better. And then you can kind of drill down and get specific based on like the audience that you're going after. But it's funny because depending on who you talk to in CPG, you'll also get a different answer about like how they thought about their business. If they like think it makes sense to like go super niche and then go wide, or it makes sense to go wide and then drill down. So that's another conversation. Depending on who you ask, you'll probably get a different answer. But I think because we knew in the foundations of the business, like our entire mission was to essentially like make an impact on the greatest amount of people. We wanted to get feedback from as many people as possible. And so that's probably the camp that I would lean to the most. But again, it depends on like, if you are a niche product, then it makes sense to like be super niche in your targeting. If you are more of like, if you're a product that would have mass appeal, then it makes sense to be a little bit more broad and let the algorithm kind of figure that out for you. Um, but yeah, I think, I mean, again, like going back to the conversation about creative marketing, I think the best strategy is probably going to be a combination of both.
Interesting. So, based on the audience that started to coalesce around your paid strategy, both in engaging, commenting is amazing, right? Because then people are like, maybe they're not quite ready to buy, but they're leaving comments and they're starting a conversation with the brand, and you can find out what types of questions do people and start to educate and have a dialogue. And then, of course, pushing people through the paywall into Amazon to become a customer. Who did you find out your target audience was, and how different was that than what you expected?
It's funny that you say that, because our target audience is, prior to our rebrand, was like, our sweet spot was like 50 plus. Like 50 plus, like, people. I mean, if you think about it from a need-based perspective, like, it makes total sense. Those are the people suffering with inflammation the most.
Huge population, largest population moving into kind of like peak healthcare maintenance timing, I suppose, for lack of a better word.
Yep. But the surprising thing was that they were in Kentucky. They were in Arkansas. That was really the surprising, like, part of it, is you wouldn't expect them to look like your Erewhon shopper or your Sprout shopper. Like, these are people like that look totally different. And that was the most exciting thing that I could have like ever kind of like, for someone like me who likes to understand human behavior. That was the most exciting thing that I could have asked for, actually, because it just shows you, as like a founder, when you're building something, you could have the intention of building it for a specific customer, but maybe the people that actually need it look totally different. And I really welcomed that realization and that test that we kind of saw. But yeah, it's funny, like, now after the rebrand, we've obviously gone a lot younger in terms of like the pool that even like the algorithm is allowing us to dip into, which is fantastic. Because I think, again, like, going back to really our like core mission is to have the greatest impact on the greatest amount of people. But yeah, now it's like, you'll see our Erewhon ads specifically like leaning to a more Erewhon type consumer, or like just general ads leaning towards a wider audience of people in terms of age and in terms of gender. And yeah, that's been super, super cool to see.
That's cool. And then, based on that initial paid experimentation, have you now taken what you've learned about your audience and moved into creator marketing, or is that still on the to-do list?
That's in progress, actually. So a lot of the times I'll use, I'll kind of like tap creators on the shoulder for ad creative. And I
Okay.
mean, that converts the best. That is probably like the highest converting, like, any of the ads that we've run, honestly, because it's like you're seeing a person, they're talking to you about a product and they're explaining it to you. And that's really where I found us to win, because our product does require a little bit more education and explanation. And so that's been really great. But actually, I'm now heavily, like, our strategy is going to be heavily leaning into TikTok Shop and creator marketing as well. Yeah. So, like, these are some of the things that I've been thinking about pretty aggressively. TikTok Shop, definitely, definitely, definitely. And then just like upper funnel creator marketing, absolutely, as well. I'm like designing our PR boxes, actually, as we speak. So that's going to be a huge part of the strategy as well. And here's another tidbit for you.
Please.
I will probably be leaning into that more than meta ads now.
Wow. Okay. And
Yeah.
is that because you've hit kind of a point of diminishing returns, or like, what's driving that pivot?
Have we hit a point of diminishing returns? Yes and no. And the reason why I say that is because for our current strategy, I think we just need to get as much upper funnel awareness as possible. So yes, in that sense. And I know like meta ads are really gonna, like, meta ads are also just a tool in your toolbox, right? Because like when you have creators posting about you on Instagram, when you have creators posting about you on Facebook, even, like, you're the algorithm is just going to get better signals. It's going to understand like, oh my God, this is exactly what they're doing. And like, this is who they're going after. So like those meta ads then become, instead of like an education piece, they become a lower funnel, like optimization piece is like really how I'm kind of thinking about it. Right now, they're doing more lifting for us than they need to.
Wow. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. It seems as you kind of turn on these additional channels, it all kind of works in cohesion together. Um, yeah, no, this is fascinating. Well, look, I am excited to try it as somebody that loves turmeric shots, and definitely loves it as just kind of a consumer, more as like a supplement. I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited to give it a try, whether it's at Irwan next time I'm in the office in Venice, or whether it's trying it through your direct to consumer channels. Yeah, super excited about what you're building. So, if you could send the audience or connect with you directly, where do you want to push people?
Just DM us, honestly. I'm on Instagram managing our like brand socials. So if you want to say hi, pop in, DM us. I'm also available on LinkedIn. But yeah, anything you need, our website's there. Our contact form is there as well. But yeah, I would say like those are really the best avenues to reach us and contact me.
I love it. Well, Janavi, thank you so much for coming on a little bit today and sharing us in the story of how you're building this really fun brand. And I love the family story and kind of the heritage Ayurvedic principles. Like this is like 5,000 years of Eastern medicine going into the thinking around this stuff. So congratulations and keep on it. For those of you who are watching at home, if this is the first time you're seeing the show, don't forget to give us a follow or subscribe so you can see more fascinating interviews with builders and thought leaders in and around the marketing space in the future. If you're listening to the show and you give us an honest review, that's how we find a bigger audience organically. And if there is a CPG or beverage marketer out there, somebody in the wellness industry, or most importantly, if there's somebody out there who's dealing with inflammation or is looking for something that might help them out with some of the health issues that we talked about today, don't forget to share the show. And with that, Janavi, I'll let you go. Have a great day, and thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mean, this was so fun and I really appreciate it.